Welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock and you've joined us in series 2. Today I'm joined by Sarah Blacksmith and she's a General Manager for Motion Control and Sustainability Lead at Siemens Digital Industries. And Siemens are a leading technology company. They empower their customers to meet the great challenges of our times. Their businesses and local organisations enjoy the entrepreneurial freedom to serve their customers and markets in the best way possible via a structure geared toward delivering ultimate value for customers. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, lovely to be here.
Siemens have been going a long time. Fun fact, my mother's cousin's husband worked for Siemens and got his MBE working for Siemens. Very long time ago.
Really? Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Based in Chester as well. So yeah.
Okay.
So,
good place to come from then.
Definitely. You joined Siemens 10 years ago, near enough. And I was stalking you this morning on LinkedIn and looking at your career path. You've sort of had quite a linear career progression. You've worked in a variety of different fields, starting as a lean implementer through production manager, now through to your current roles. And I say roles because they're two, really.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like chicken and egg, isn't it? You've had the opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
And you've grown because you could do all the different roles. So how has that sort of focused your career path?
I think it's one of the things that like Siemens is really big on, and I read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, is all about like having a growth mindset and thinking, that this where you are today isn't like a set place, or the skills that you have today aren't a set position. That if you put the effort in, if you're passionate about something and you ask for help, then you can go in whatever direction you choose. And I think in the last number of years, it's definitely that's definitely become more of a thing, if you like, because it used to be very much like set career paths, didn't it? Like if you're in manufacturing, never shall you veer into sales and marketing. Like, there's a manufacturing pathway and you can go that way, or there's an expert technologist pathway and you can go that way, or there's a leadership pathway you can go that. Whereas now I think like people are able to move a lot more than was probably acceptable. Is that the right way? Not that you couldn't do it, but it's more acceptable to change that pathway and do something a bit different, and actually you can bring a new way of looking at things and a new way of doing things, and into a different area that so I've recently, like you say, recently last couple of years, moved from manufacturing into more of the sales side of things. And that's not to say it's not without its challenges of learning completely new things. Like absolutely. But you can bring some. Hopefully, everyone else thinks I bring something, whilst also learning on the job and figuring out how it works currently and how it could be better for our customers, in terms of that process of sales and what we're offering to our customers as well. So it's very much like just. Yeah, it's not a straight ladder anymore. I don't think it's like moving from side to side as you're going up. Like,
I think one of the things that people can bring when they move from, that pathway to that pathway is just a different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
And it's the question why.
Yeah.
Being an SME manufacturing, change management has always it's always been something that people have done. It just wasn't called change management.
Because you need to keep changing, don't you, to be competitive.
You can't stand still.
Yeah.
You'll just end up going backwards. And it was very much like sort of like, the carrot and the stick. Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. Because when people have done something for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, as soon as you take your eye off them, and the carrot goes away, they're going to go back to how they used to do it. But when people come in and go, why are you doing it like that?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
and they haven't, and the answer is, oh, we've always done it like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Worst
that's a
expression.
really good way to get people to think differently
Yeah.
and to think in a more refreshing way, because you do get blinkered. That's one of the things we say here.
Yeah.
Me and my senior management team will quite often bring in external people, whether it's on health and safety, whether it's on sales and marketing, in whatever way, shape, or form. And it's like, challenge us, because all three of
Yeah.
us have worked here all our lives.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we are, as much as we want to innovate, we are going to be blinkered.
Yeah. And
Um,
it comes
and
back to like
it's
what part of the reason why you do this podcast as well, in terms of there's still a lot of, certainly in manufacturing side of things, that is very, male dominated still, and that's another reason of bringing in different different genders, different ethnicities, just different people, to have a diverse view on the world, isn't it? Either from, like you say, from me coming from manufacturing in with different experiences, but yeah, just bringing that different view on the world, from whatever walk of life that you come from, can only add value, can't it?
completely. I mean, and I think for us here at Professional Polishing, one of the things we don't do is we don't employ from the stainless sector where we work.
Okay, yeah.
Mainly because the majority of people who are out on the market work at our customers.
Yeah.
And
Be
whilst
pinching
traditionally our
for
customers have quite often nicked our team,
yeah.
we try not to do it the other way around.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of our senior account managers, Sharon, she's been with us, 11, 12 years now?
Right.
12 years.
Yeah.
She was a manager in retail prior to that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So skill sets can, be changed, even if it's just communication, if it's, I don't think it matters what area you're in. Communication is incredibly important when you're
Yeah.
dealing with clients
Oh,
or partners, even if you're not sort of in a sales type role.
yeah,
There are
absolutely.
stakeholders all the way through.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
always been involved in manufacturing. Your first degree was in manufacturing, engineering, and management. So you were obviously interested in as a career path rather than falling into it like a lot of people. How did that interest come about?
I mean, originally, like, the interest I had was in, like, it started off being, watching Formula One back when Damon Hill, I don't know if you watch any Formula One or did back in the day, but yeah, Damon Hill was, was prominent, and Michael Schumacher. And so I used to go to watch the F1, the Grand Prix at Silverstone most years, and really got into that, and how things were, how things are made, and had a real passion for wanting to get into that. But then so I ended up like choosing the degree at Loughborough. I went to Loughborough, did manufacturing engineering, and had a placement at Alston Power, as was, and that was all around, like you say, continuous improvement. They called it like lean manufacturing, all about
Yeah,
identifying waste. And and I love that, like figuring out where you could, one, how things are made, but then how could you make it better? How could we make it, more streamlined, and how can we get more out the door, basically? So I did a couple of years once I finished uni, doing the lean implementer role, and gave me a good grounding in always trying to, like you say, ask why, and challenge why we do things in a certain way. But also makes you a bit unpopular sometimes.
yeah, it does. It does. But Alston Power, obviously, as was a great company.
Mm.
One of our clients, actually. There you go.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. We did a project with them. Oh gosh, probably 15 years ago. It was a massive project. Can't remember what it went into. And yeah, we were the only people in the UK, and still are, who could do those sort of sizes. We had a massive breakdown halfway through. It was great fun. Yeah. I was
Always the
lying
way.
awake at 2 o'clock in the morning going, oh,
Oh,
God, I've got to ring
sod.
Alistair in the morning and go, sorry, we're going to be late. So,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, I was only a member
uh,
of Alston Power for about 6 months, and then Siemens bought them.
uh,
Well, they bought that part of the business anyway,
Yeah,
gas turbines. So yeah, it was good though.
yeah. So, as well as your first degree, which was obviously in manufacturing, engineering, and management, whilst you've been working for the last 10 years at Siemens, you've also done your master's and your MBA. Um, I've done my master's and various other degrees as well whilst working. It's a bit of a juggling act, and a few of
Oh,
our guests who've been on have also done the same. So, how do you manage to split like your work, your life, your study, your family, your friends, sort of life balance? You were
yeah,
talking before I hit record, and you've just been to see the Lion King at the theatre, and all these things that build up our lives, and then you
yeah.
need to add 20 hours a week studying.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah, I don't know. I think like certainly because mine was a part time, probably similar to what you did. So 2 years, like right, I'm gonna have to dedicate, like you say, a fair chunk of my time. And for me, I mean, I haven't got kids, so that's one thing. I've not got the challenge of having to manage a whole um family on top of that, so that definitely makes it easier than some of the people that that I was on the course with, like who one of my friends, Simon, had 3 kids, and you just think, gosh, how do you manage to do it? I always think that, gosh, how do you manage to do it? But I think what I found was like I did actually have quite a lot of spare time at the weekends and stuff. I mean, obviously you have to give up doing certain things at the weekends that so I think it's like having that commit, if you're committing to something, saying like, right, going into this, I know that I'm going to have, do less things at the weekends than I would normally do. But that it's only for that period of time. And obviously there'll be peaks and troughs within those 2 years anyway, that you're able to do different things. But so I think part of it is, yeah, you're going to have to commit to doing that, and that take a bit of a hit in terms of what spare time that you have got. And committing. I mean, I prefer to do stuff at the weekends because you can sort of clear your mind a bit better for me anyway. But I know like lots of people do stuff either on the commute to work in the morning if they get the train into like the likes of London, or in like on the way back, or in the evenings when they've got a bit of spare time and kids have gone to bed and stuff. Um, that's not to say it's not challenging, if you know what I mean. Yeah, you've got to like I guess if you've done it, you know exactly what I mean. You have to give up. Yeah, you have to give up certain things, don't you? And say like, right, but you're doing it with a view. It's that period, and that like at the end of that, you put the hard work in, and you'll have all of that knowledge then to be able to move your career forward. And that it's an investment in your in your learning, so that you can be a better person, but do different things potentially with your career as well. It might afford different opportunities. So, but yeah, it's you've definitely got to cut some time out. But I did find like you think like, gosh, when you finished it, I don't know if you had the same thing, Kirsty, where you're like, oh my God, like I've got so much spare time now. Like, what am I going to do with all this time? Like, and then you soon fill it up again with different things.
Oh, when I finished mine, I went straight into my PhD.
Oh my gosh,
Um, but I
amazing.
mean, this I keep threatening to go back to my PhD. So I got about 18 months into my PhD, and then we had the 2008 2009 banking crash.
Yeah,
So obviously, running an SME, I was like, okay, focusing on the business
yeah, yeah,
100%. And by the time I sort of like thought I'd go back to it, obviously academia had moved along.
yeah.
I was doing my PhD in cognitive science and religion because that was what my master's was based on.
Right,
So I
okay.
keep threatening to go back to it,
Get it finished.
but looking in different areas. And I
Yeah,
had I had 2 meetings with Wolverhampton University booked in 2018, and the first one I had to cancel because I fell over and broke my arm. And then 6 months later, or 3 months later, rebooked the meeting, and then I fell over and broke my ankle. So I was like, I can't book a third meeting because I don't want to break anything else, and I don't think they're going to
yeah,
believe me to do. And then
well, third time's a charm, though, so you might.
I was talking to Birmingham last year, and was talking to some potential supervisors, and then that translated in me coming up with the idea for my conference, and so I went off in a different direction.
least it
But
gave
I
you
do keep meaning
inspiration.
going back to it. But I found with the spare time and the juggling, I'm really good at working to deadlines.
Mm,
Um, as long as I can see that deadline, if it's 6 weeks away, it doesn't exist. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I will do a week's worth of work in like 18 hours to hit that deadline.
Cram.
I work really well under pressure. But if I've got the time, I'm just like, yeah, I'll get to it.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Um,
uh,
we were talking about why, and you asking, going into situations and asking about why. And one of the things that caught my eye on your LinkedIn profile was when talking about you and your accomplishments. It says you're a highly motivated general manager, and you say on there, I believe in starting with the why and engaging people by finding their purpose.
mm.
So take me through how you would do that. Give me an example.
So, have you ever read Simon Sinek's book? Or start with why.
Yeah.
So that's where it all came from, and he's got it's quite an older one now, but a TED talk where he did like a 20-minute sort of presentation on the golden circle. So actually, I printed this out because I got it ages ago, and you reminded me of it just before this morning. So I bought this off of his website, and it was all about like how to stand out in the job market. So it was like job resumes, as they call them in America. But it's all based on his golden circle. So it's in the center is, you can see that you start with why, you move out to how, and then the what follows. So so it's sort of like what he talks about is, clearly articulating what you're passionate about, like what do you enjoy, because most people's why, okay, we all come to work to get money, but that's not ultimately, why you pick a profession or why you pick something. It's because you're, either, normally it's something that you're interested in, you're passionate about. So um, he talks about, understanding what inspires you, and what drives you. So it might be that, you love working with people, and you love helping to develop people and helping them be the best they can be. And so so that might then lead you to say, well, okay, well, like something like training and development, do you enjoy working with, bringing new people into the business, early career professionals, and seeing them develop through that process, something like along those lines. But it's drilling into what really drives a person and what inspires them, and that particularly is, obviously in younger people joining the company, or just younger people, because but then that said, you've got an opportunity, like we've just spoken about earlier, to pivot and do something different if you've not found what it is, or you're in a role that you're not necessarily passionate about what you're doing. But in his book, he talks a bit about, businesses. So the main business he talks about is Apple, and the reason that Apple came, their why was all about disrupting the music industry, and doing things differently. And so he sort of looks to different companies, and like I think it's Western Airlines in America, that their why, that they were created because they wanted to have to provide cheap travel, because travel used to be really for people that had a lot of money, but they wanted to provide travel that enabled, just normal people to travel across America. And so that was their why. It was to enable travel for people that didn't have a lot of money. It wasn't just, that oh yeah, well, we're a plane company, or that you're enabling, that group of, a demographic to travel and open up new opportunities. So yeah, I really like that about when when I read, and I've listened to Simon Sinek and read a couple more of his books and stuff, and so once you understand your why, it's then understanding like how you can go about, what are your strengths, like how can you actually go about, aligning to your purpose, and then what's the tangible result of that, like what could a career look like, that aligns to what you're passion is.
And a lot of the career paths aren't obvious.
Yeah,
That something in manufacturing or engineering, you might go, oh, I don't really enjoy maths, and physics didn't interest me. I like talking to people. I like doing this. I like doing that. And you can still use those skills in manufacturing and engineering
absolutely.
careers.
Yeah.
Um, and I think one of the misconceptions of engineering and manufacturing as career paths is that, everyone's got to have a degree in electronics, or
Yeah.
they've got to go and work in a dirty factory, or,
Yeah.
they need to take all their A levels in, maths, double maths, and physics. And it doesn't
Absolutely.
work
No,
like that.
yeah, you're right. Because again, you need you need a diverse pool of people in a business, and it's not just like you say, it's not just about having engineers. We need people that work in finance. We need people that are good at selling. And that can really develop great relationships with customers. We need people who are great at change and business improvements and identifying opportunities to make us better.
Hmm.
We need people in HR to help develop our people. We need training people to support that career development and training and education of our employees. Like you say, there's a whole load of roles. Production scheduling, for example. In manufacturing, you don't just have engineers, you have operators, you have production schedulers. You got a whole raft of different
Yeah,
different careers and
complete.
different pathways that you can take that don't require you necessarily to have a technical and like you said about communication, one of the biggest issues that I've seen throughout my career is where most arguments and where most issues come is people not being able to communicate. If you can
Yes.
communicate well, and that's one of the biggest things that would that sets you on a great pathway, and that you don't necessarily have to be technical to be in a business improvement role. To obviously training and develop. Obviously, there are certain qualifications and things that you'll have to do, but yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean, like you say, that you've got to have an engineering degree to be able to work in manufacturing and engineering. So yeah, there's a whole load of opportunities, isn't there?
There is completely. One of the things I want to touch on is it sounds like it incorporates all of these things, but moving in again a new direction. So, how do you think these roles would work if we're talking about the industrial metaverse,
Hmm.
which I'm a huge Marvel fan. So, obviously, Tony Stark invented the metaverse. Um, Ably written by Stanley, enough said. But for those who haven't heard the phrase industrial metaverse, um, and I know it's there to help develop sustainable industrial practices,
Hmm.
can you explain what it means?
Yeah, so and these are my layman's terms, so like I'm not no
Layman's
expert,
terms are great.
but
I'm just going, yeah, just so I
yeah,
can, say enough said at the end again,
yeah. So
channel Stanley, that's fine.
the way I see it, it's a virtual world that can mirror the real world. So if you've got a factory or you've got a building, or you've got a machine, that you can actually draw it all out virtually, and that and it's a platform that then enables you to bring in different technologies. So incorporates like cloud computing or artificial intelligence, which everybody's talking about at the moment. You can have like digital twins, so you can like simulate processes. So say you were designing a new factory, you'd be able to design that in the virtual world. Or even if you have your own factory anyway and you want to make improvements, so you want to move machinery around and you want to change how the value streams are and how the flow of the factory is going to be, before you make the investment of moving all of that equipment, you want to have a good bit of surety that it's actually going to work effectively once you've done all the changes, because it can be a do, can't it? If you've got big equipment that's got foundations that's laid, you're not going to move all of that on a whim. So actually simulating that, modeling it all in the virtual world can save you a lot of time and money. Similarly, like before you cut metal, a lot of if I throw back to my Lincoln days with the gas turbines, a lot of the hot discs, they were really expensive bits of castings and metal that came in, and if we machined those incorrectly, and you were that's a huge cost to the business of scrap. So if you again can simulate that virtually and make any changes to programs and run it virtually beforehand, then you're going to make sure, well, as much as you can do, you're going to be taking that risk out as much as you possibly can. I think especially now with certainly if I think of Siemens with global factories, we've got a sister factory, we've got a factory in the UK where we manufacture variable speed drives in Congleton, but we've got sister factories in Germany and in China, and it really helps with collaboration across those different factories. So yeah, enables you to take risks in a world where it's going to cost you a lot less, move things around, if I'm thinking purely from a factory point of view. But yeah, similarly, if you're machining things, or if you want to redesign your factory, or if you want to move your buildings, like what's in your buildings around, I think the opportunity there is huge for, obviously if you're not wasting time, effort, money in the real world, then that has, you're using less energy, you're not going to waste things. So from a, you mentioned sustainability, there's a sustainability impact. But there's also there's a load of tools as well around, how you can design, because the bulk of the environmental impact of a product is, and when I say bulk, I think it's about 80% is a stat, is the impact is in the design phase. So if you can design a product with circularity in mind, looking at making it as energy efficient as possible, looking at how you can reuse components later down the line, then actually that needs to be done in the design phase, and there's a whole suite of software where you can look at different elements of that design phase. But yeah, it's a huge opportunity.
It really is.
Yeah, it's people getting, it's an upskilling piece. It's, people actually, you've got to have I think a bit more forethought in terms of, it can't just be like, oh yeah, we need to do that like next week. It's trying to incorporate that bit of the process in, because ultimately it will shrink the whole process. But it's having that, you've obviously got to upskill people to a certain extent, and or ask for different companies for help, because I think one of the things that we've recognized is that no one company can do everything. It's about having an ecosystem of partners, of working together to try and figure out the challenges that we've got. And yeah, we're not able to do everything. So and any one company that probably says that they could is that would be a bold statement. I think
it would. I think one of the things that's really happened over the last sort of 10 years or so, accelerated by COVID, is collaboration. A lot more people are open to saying, we need your help with this. And I think, so I'm a bit older than you, so I started in the late 80s, and the sort of 80s and 90s, when you sort of came into manufacturing and engineering, obviously your sort of managers and directors had all started work in sort of the 50s and 60s. So there was very much we don't share anything, we don't say anything. We don't admit ever to doing anything wrong type attitude in the marketplace. Every company was an island. You couldn't say who your clients were. And it was, there was almost like an isolationist type ethos. And as younger and younger people came in, it was like, well, why can't I talk to that person?
We're going to be able to move forward a lot quicker if we can join forces. And
completely. It's I really want to touch on, because I knew we'd run over time. I really want to touch. So we're recording this the early part of September, but later in the month, we've got the second Change in Perceptions conference at the MTC that you're involved with. I really enjoyed last year, and I'm looking forward to this year as well. So what can delegates expect who are attending?
So we've got a great lineup of speakers, which you can find on the website, and then we're doing it in a similar fashion in terms of the afternoon. Like, there's a lot of different workshops that you can pick from, but there's sort of three themes to the whole conference. So the first one is around diversity and inclusion, so sharing different best practices and stories. opportunity around like leadership and career development. So for anyone that attends, but obviously we're focused on encouraging women into manufacturing, but we need allies. So any males that want to join the conference can also join too. And then it's looking a bit about technology and innovations. So, particularly around AI and, gender bias in AI. I think there's a session on that as well. So those are the three sort of key themes of the conference. But yeah, hopefully, I think it'll be a fab day. I'm running a session with Eleanor Baker and Tom Flew. So Tom from Engineers Insight and Ellie from Lloyd's
Lloyd's.
banking group. Yeah. On social media again, so that'll be interesting. So we can that's one session that you could pick in the afternoon. But yeah, those are the three themes. But it should be good. It's a good location at the MTC in Coventry as well, so hopefully quite close for you as well, Kirsty.
It is. It's only just down the motorway, so it's always good to get there. And I'm looking forward to it. And finally, Sarah, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Goodness. I think it would be like being fair and consistent. So, in whoever you're working with and part of, if you were leading a team, or even just being part of a team, like being consistent in the way that you act and being fair with people. So I think that would be it.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today,
No,
Sarah.
thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. The Women in Industry podcast is sponsored by the Women with Metal Conference. This year is the 29th of October at the International Convention Centre in Birmingham. And you can find more information at womenwithmetal.com.